The small city of Calico Rock sits along the White River in the southeastern hills of the Ozarks. In 1903, the construction of a new railroad transformed the small shipping port into a boom town. While in recent years the population of Calico Rock has been in decline, the city has maintained its unique identity. While the buildings along Main Street are still used daily, the eastern side of town has been largely abandoned, but many of the buildings still remain. Calico Rock is the second largest city in Izard County, and it lies approximately 125 miles from the Arkansas state capital of Little Rock. The population of Izard County actually peaked during the 1910 census with almost 15,000 people. Initial European exploration of the area came by way of French explorers. However, in 1819, it was the American explorer and scientist Henry R. Schoolcraft who was the one known to have attributed the name Calico Rock. The name comes from the varied patterns and colors of the rocks along the bluff that resemble calico. During the Civil War, there were a few skirmishes in the area. However, the settlement had more of a reputation for general lawlessness. After the war, Calico Rock remained a small steamboat landing community with a couple of shops until the turn of the 20th century. Today, the community holds on to the legacy of the steamboat. The building that once housed the Bank of Calico Rock, which was originally constructed in 1903, is currently the home of the Calico Rock Heritage Museum and Visitor Center. The Community Museum attempts to recreate the experience of boarding the Ozark Queen steamboat as the guest descends into the basement. The turning point for Calico Rock was in 1903 when the St. Louis and Iron Mountain Railway Company constructed a rail line through the city. The railway ended shipping via the river and spurred quick growth over the next 2 decades. Main Street was the commercial center. A few general stores lined Main Street, and higher on the bluff to the west sat the Riverview Hotel. Before the Great Depression, logging and cotton farming were the primary goods that traveled through the city. The grueling and labor-intensive process of cultivating cotton is often closely associated in Arkansas with the Delta region. However, cotton was grown to such an extent around Calico Rock that there was a cotton gin constructed in the city. Life in Izard County was especially difficult for the African American population. Poverty, discrimination, and even mob violence organized by the KKK pushed the majority of African Americans out of Izard County. While Calico Rock experienced rapid economic growth in the 1900s, 1910s, and 1920s, it also faced many disasters. Flooding was common due to the city's proximity to the White River and, to a lesser extent, Calico Creek. However, massive flooding in 1916, 1919, and 1927 caused substantial damage. But flooding wasn't the only issue. In 1923, a train passing Main Street sparked against the railroad track, leading to the ignition of a fire that burned a large portion of the city. The eastern side of town along Walnut Street was mostly in an industrial sector. This area was much more prone to flooding because of its lower elevation. By the 1910s, there was a small train depot, a cotton gin, a flooring factory, and many other businesses. Most of the structures still standing were built after the 1923 fire. Impressively, the Killian & Son feed store signage is still legible after decades of being exposed to the elements next to Calico Creek. The city jail also sits next to the creek across from the feed store. Walnut Street, or Pepper Sauce Alley, as it has been nicknamed by the locals, maintains folklore that projects it as a bit more rough and tumble than the rest of the town. A little bit further down the street, at the corner of Walnut and Cadwell Street, sits the foundation of what was the Batesville Wholesale Grocery Company that operated until the 1950s. For a long period, Calico Rock was the largest city in Izard County, and it was also the first place in Izard County where electricity was made available. These are the remains of the original power station in Izard County, the Calico Rock Electric Power and Ice Company. Today, Calico Rock embraces the touristy notion of being a ghost town. It is a short walk from the quaint specialty craft shops along Main Street to the decaying eastern side of town. But in reality, there are countless other rural communities across Arkansas that could tell a similar story. Although Calico Rock's fading structures are likely a decade or so older than most other rural communities, the stories and patterns are very similar. At its core, shipping goods on the White River created a need for a settlement in Calico Rock, and the construction of the railroad put it on the map. In the same way, changing infrastructure took Calico Rock off the map, in that the interstate highway system completely bypassed much of the Ozarks. While Calico Rock is no longer a boomtown, it remains a fascinating case study for understanding the decline of rural communities in Arkansas. I would like to give a special thank you to the Calico Rock Museum and Visitor Center, the Butler Center for Arkansas Studies, and the UA Little Rock Center for History and Culture. Thanks for watching.